Come on, let's do it right. Okay, it is 6:07. Yes, we're ready to start? I don't mean to push everybody, but this is going to be some meeting. We all have to really focus. There's a lot to do tonight because there's just a lot to do tonight. So roll call. Who do we have here?
Mary Donner.
Yes, I'm here, I think.
Melissa Adamson. Garrett Anderson.
Present.
Carolyn Campbell. Here. Shelly Daigle. Charles Eldridge.
Yep.
Ellie Fleming. Nancy Glisman. Patricia Grant.
Here.
Scott Hennings.
Present.
Taylor Johnson. Jim McConaughey. Perry Moy.
Yes.
Shel Thimios. Here. Adam Wallen. Randy Zaleski. And that's it.
That's it, but we have 6 of us. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, wait, 1, 2, 3. I keep putting Carolyn in because she's such such an extraordinary part of what's, no, it's true. Because, Carolyn, we need you because you have the PE&D at your disposal and you understand what's going on with the county. So the things that you can provide for us as a way to go, or if we look like there are people who are just not going to do anything, then we may need to adjust. We've already done that, and we've made a decision with all of us how to make it work. So, yes, I just consider you one of the board, as I do Scott, because there's so, well, the two of you give us a lot of information that is very good and valuable. So why wouldn't we want to have you part of it? So I just think of you that way. However, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is what we need for a quorum, and it doesn't include you or Scott. So we have it.
You have it.
That's why we're starting now. Thank you. Woo-hoo. Okay, so we have the roll call. Approval of the agenda. Anybody want to have a discussion? Is there something that you don't want to do?
Acceptance of the agenda.
Do we have paper agendas or just what you emailed us?
Just what we emailed.
There's a
Is
paper
there some of
agenda.
them?
There are some papers there for everybody, if somebody wants the full set.
Could grant me one too?
Yeah, I'll pass them out. Like that. Right before.
Okay, motion? Did I get that? Charlie?
Shall we need one?
And I got Garrett. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm working on it. I can print my.
Pat, would you like one?
Please. I'm not going to worry about,
Heather, do you need one?
Thanks.
you know what we didn't get on here? I do have an approval of the agenda with one amendment. And that amendment is approval of the minutes from the May 25th meeting. I don't see it on there.
What? That's because I think you're doing that in
Yeah.
the minutes next meeting.
Okay. Okay, and we're going to also include the minutes from this meeting to next meeting, so that's why it's not in there.
Right.
Thank you. All in favor of approval of the agenda?
Aye.
Okay. Now, chairman's comments. I'm going to keep this really short and sweet. There's a package that you got, and there's a lot in that package. We need to decide what it is we're going to do for the rest of it so that everybody can come back to us on the 29th with something we can now get our teeth into and decide where we're going to go. All of this has been preliminary. It's been a setup. It's where we want to go. So now it's more important than ever. The first thing that I want to bring up is that Scott sent us a link. Did you send it out to everybody? Okay. There is a link to an article in the New York Times about agriculture. Very recently, the last couple days, I started reading it. I haven't, and what the ag community can do. So I would like to see everybody get a hold of that somehow, and we'll look at that again, because there are a lot of things that they talk about that we can work on. Also, today I was at the council, county board, no, it's not, the committee of the whole. And I always laugh because we used to, when we were doing certain things, it was a CAF, a committee of somebody or other, which I was on, and if everybody was included, it was a cow. So we were either having a calf or a cow. So the cow is the committee of the whole. And the committee of the whole talks about everything that's going to be at the county board next week, and what we can look forward, pretty much. What we can do and what we can't do, where we're gonna go. It makes it, I wanna say that it's kind of modeled on Lake County, which has done the same thing. You get your work done at the committee of the whole, and when it's time to vote, you should be knowing what you're doing so that you're not there until midnight, which is what Perry and I know. So we're gonna go from there. I would like everybody to, if you can, get on the internet today and look at the meeting portal for the committee of the whole meeting. And at 9:15, I believe is when I looked at it, was when the Soil and Water Conservation District gave their presentation. And it all has to do with water, but in so many different ways. And I can't wait to get Spring back here. Spring Duffy is their,
Executive director.
there you go. She wasn't then, but that's,
Yeah, I
I just know her,
Yeah,
thank you.
right.
I want to get her back here to talk about these things because they do it in schools, they do it other places. Other ways that we can conserve our water, what we can do about making sure our water is clear, and working already with the county on certain things and what we can do. So that's one person I want to have come here and talk about it. But please, 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 look at that 10-minute bit, and you will see in all the things that you need to know about what we need to talk about water all the time.
So I don't know if they actually do, you might know better, when they do the video recording on that, if during the presentation they go to the slide deck, or if they stay focused
Oh, I
on
don't know.
the speaker. But if maybe we could get the slide deck, then, you know,
Right.
it's something you could reference without having to, I mean, it's gonna take you as long to read it as they talk, and their talk is good.
Yes.
But it's a nice reference.
And the talk is good, and from where I was sitting, I would have been looking like this to what they were talking about, and I was far more interested in what they had to say than what was on the board. Because they covered it all and anything anybody wanted to talk about. So that's a substance for what we need to talk about for water being the basis of what we are talking about otherwise. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, I had this thought, this idea, the light bulb went on. And I think when we're starting to talk about agriculture and water and those kind of things, my question is, especially with the weather recently, is how can farmers better prepare for more drought conditions? Because we already know where the water is and what's happening with the water. What do you do about drought? Can you create more retention ponds on your property so that you can use them? Is there something else that we can help them work with so that they can do it? And some of the things that I heard today from Water Conservation District, Soil and Water, yes, some of the things that they were talking about had to do with just that. If I had a pond that was a retention pond that I could work with, that I knew I had clean water, then you don't have to pump it from a deep well. You can get it from that retention plant. But if you've got drought, how do we work toward a future of a world like this that is these kind of drought conditions all the time? And I think when we get to the 2050 plan, we can look at some things now and see innovative things that are coming up and let the rest of the world worry about it in 2050 if they don't listen to us. Does that make sense? So what does the county board want us to focus on? And that's specifically to you, Carolyn. We have all these things. We have transportation. We have 15-minute neighborhoods. Where do you think, even though it's in the contract, and even though it's everything that we're doing, where do you see the county board most interested in working with? Because if there are things that the county board really doesn't want to see, but we really do, then we have to figure out how to push it. And if we can't push it, and if it's not that important to us, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. If something is going okay, we need to know that it's going okay, and we're already pointed in the right direction. And I'm sorry, I have to rely, she's deer in headlights. No, but it's just, those are the things that we have to look at, because eventually, next year, when this gets done, whatever our wishes are and whatever our thoughts are, they have to be substantiated to make it work with the county board on what they wanted us to do to begin with. And there's been enough stuff going out there. We need to make sure that we're working in the right direction. That's not to anybody else, that's just from me personally. There's just been so much stuff over the last year. Let's get it all out of the way and start just concentrating on this. So I've already taken up too much time. Not really, only 11 minutes. Let's get started with the county fair.
Public comment is next.
There is no public. There's nobody here, thank you. That's my chairman's comment, public comment. New business, the county board, the county fair. We have obtained a booth. That's the size of the booth, right there. So that we can have that at the county fair for the 4 days. It's the county's booth. We're going to have, I hope, a banner, Scott, kind of a banner that's going to say,
Yeah, we can do that.
that. I'm hoping to get a runner that says it's just McHenry County there, so that we know it is. We'll have the colors that we use for the 2050 plan, everybody's 2050 plan. You tell me if I'm being nuts. We've got, I want to have blue on one side, yellow on the other, and white in the back. That gives us 3 places that people can walk around. I've got, the mental health board wants to be part of this. Who else is it? HR wants to be part of this. I know there are going to be other people who want to be part of this, and my answer is, you want to be part of it, you can work for an hour or 2. And then we can also display their things. But what I want to do is show what we are going to have for the 2050 plan. What are the things that we're working with? What kind of input can the county give us, the county residents give us? And show everybody that McHenry County is connected to mental health board, it's connected to transportation, it's connected to hiring, it's connected to workforce board, it's connected to all these different things that make up everything that we're looking at for this 2050 plan. So there's a lot of things. I have ideas. I want to have a post that has Wayfair signs that say, okay, you want to go here, you want to go here, go look for this there, and go, Historical Society is over there, and it's where you look for it because we are part of that. It's all been me and pounding staff to do something for a long time. And it shouldn't be just me. I want to find some way that we can promote the 2050 plan, some way we can promote McHenry County doing what we do and all the things that we do and how we do it. So, one of the things that we wanted to talk about is tchotchkes. Everybody wants to get a little something thrown at them. So, what are we interested in? Butterflies. Instead of giving out candy, we're going to give out, you have some
It's just the
copies of it?
mock-up.
Okay, we're going to
The
give out
packets.
wildflower packets.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Wildflower packets for butterfly. And on the back of the packet, it'll say, have the 2050, move forward to 20, whatever the heck it is called. Okay, we're gonna have that on the back, and the QR code.
Oh, and
Those things.
probably says
One of those
with
things on the
us.
back. that
No,
will-
it doesn't. That was That's just the company's
Okay,
template name,
so-
sorry.
So we've ordered them and they should be here by the
I thought that was
30th.
controversial.
So it's not candy, it's not a lot of other things, but it says, we are interested in the environment, here you go. You give it to the kids and they can take a survey, or you give it to the kids and they can get, not in that QR code, to look at anything they want to look at. It's a post. But I didn't say that. Mine never do, and I get burpees from Fireman's League, so.
What,
But-
excuse me, but what seeds are in those?
Those are all pollinators that would
But I mean,
attract
what-
butterflies.
It
Literally.
says on there, it's, Garrett, can you read, it's like coneflower, black,
Oh, right
the
right
brown-eyed
there, that
Susan.
text. It's a little small.
Shasta daisy, black-eyed Susan, purple coneflower.
So I was gonna say, if you wanna attract, like for instance, swallowtails, which are the big, beautiful blue ones, all you need to do is throw out dill.
Okay,
That's all you need to do.
Dill.
So
Throw
then-
out dill.
then I'm going to put you in charge of,
Throwing out dill.
no, but making a statement that there are other pollinators out there that are easy to do. And if you make up some kind of sign that says that, and we can make up some snack things
That works.
that have some of those in them, throw these out and you'll get this and this. And do this and this and we can get those. So there are things we can build on for that, but you gotta have something that you can give people to want to come. And it's not gonna be the parents, it's gonna be the kids. I got one of these. It always works, it just works. Whether or not they use it, that's fine. We've got a couple hundred of them.
I think
We
it's
have a
great.
Packets?
We have a couple thousand of them.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the places that I've talked to people, I talked to Kelly Wegener today, and since maybe it would be something to do that the county board members might consider working an hour or two to promote the county and what they can do at this. I would like to see the county always have one of those and focus on something every year. It just happens to be that this year is a special year for the county and it's a special year for us. So why don't we do that and make it the best thing that we can make it, to say, this is what we're looking at. The other thing we have talked about already is something that Scott came up with, thank you, and that Renee, if you've got that, pass it around. We can have like mason jars lined up, and all of the general ideas that we have on our these historic resources, this and this. We can have a jar for each one, and we can get, I'm sure, from Oriental Trading Company or anybody, we can get coins.
I like the idea of just using the dried corn
Yeah.
or dried beans.
Yeah.
Dried beans.
Beans or corn or
Beans or
something.
corn.
Right, yeah.
I didn't even think about that, because I haven't looked at that for a while. But if we have 8, let's say we have 8, because I don't know how many are in here or how many are going to be in here by then. But we say, what's most important to you? Transportation, living, neighborhood, whatever, and do that over the time period and let them use,
Joe Biden's jar.
if there are 8, use 5, maybe use 4. You get a number of seeds or number of whatever, and you put them in there, and then we count them at the end and see who's the most interested in the most stuff. That's gonna give us an idea of the kind of things that we need to work on more focused. I'm not doing this in general, I'm not doing this generally, but for us, we have to remember that we are talking about the base, and the base is always going to be water. Where are you going to water? How are you going to use it? Who can use it? How do we go about doing that? Anybody got any ideas or want to have any ideas or think that it's a crummy idea? That's fine too.
I like both of these ideas a lot. I think back to the seed packet, that's one of the best things about the county fair is coming away with a bunch of swag from all
That's
the
right.
booths. So something that they can take home, I think, is really important. And I think this is a really clever way to get some general feedback without being way too specific for people that are just having a casual day at the fair. But yeah, it's great.
Because they can look at everything we have.
Mhm.
Again, I'm going to have the map that shows everything on it that we have, so that all people who look at it can be totally confused and come to you and say,
Mhm.
what is this? Why am it? First thing you ask is, where do you live? And you can put that on some board with a peg, and then you pull out, what do you want to know? You want to know Sarah? You want to know this? You want to know that layer, this layer, that layer, underwater, above water, transportation? We'll have one for each one of those, so that you can pull them out and show people what it is that affects them where they live.
What do you mean, like this, you'd have the Sarah map?
We'd have a Sarah map, certainly, and the most up-to-date Sarah
We
map.
have them all there over there.
They're all here, but we'll have better ones for,
Oh, we will, okay.
yes, we will. Yes, nothing is in paper. Nothing is going to be in paper.
Well, they'll just be mounted.
They'll all be,
Can you
they'll,
guys do that?
Oh,
We'll all be
you're
on board.
volunteering us for a lot over there, man. I don't know.
I would probably do like a road sign.
we want this
do
to
that.
succeed well.
Question.
But if anybody's got any other ideas or thinks that this is not a good idea, please let me know. Because this isn't, yes, it is, it's mine. I've been talking about this since last year. We
Yeah,
really
we
need a
have.
way to advertise McHenry County and say, let's do something. Michelle?
Yeah, so I like both the wildflower and the corn or bean or whatever that is. I think those are wonderful ways to, engage people. I think the important thing that we need to do is have a clear message. What do we want from the people who are approaching the booth?
Right.
Do we want them to engage with us on this and provide feedback? And I think that's probably what we want. And so just making sure that we have maybe even some basic talking points that we refer people to who have signed up to volunteer, and I'm happy
Right.
to draft those or something if that's helpful.
Right.
To just give people a very simple way to explain what the comprehensive plan is, because I tell people that I'm working
sorry.
on the comprehensive plan and they have no idea.
They have no
even
idea.
people who are very involved, they don't know.
Right.
And it's really important that people fully understand so that they can realize that this is something that they need to engage with. So yeah, just a clear message that we're trying to convey with the booth, and then also, clear points for the people who are working the booth to hit.
I think we can
That's
give
great.
bullet points.
Yes.
Jerry, get some.
The QR code actually is for the survey.
Perfect.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Linnea?
Hey.
Are you just coming?
Can I just sit here and listen?
You can.
You sure can.
Always
Okay.
needs standing.
Only if I, gosh, there's still tons of can.
Oh, he brought it to ZBA?
Oh, yeah, yesterday. And today.
Okay.
No, that's a great idea, because if we have a lot of people, they don't really know. And the other thing that we had talked about was the general suggestion box,
Yes.
just,
Yeah.
for people who want to tell us something that,
Does the survey already have a general suggestion area in the survey?
gosh, it's been so long since I've looked at it, I can't remember.
Because that would be a great way to have people do the survey. If they want to give a suggestion, say, oh yeah, let's just
Yeah.
take the survey. There's a place we'll record your suggestions there.
I believe so, but I
So
will
ultimately,
double
that's
check.
the goal, right, is to get as many surveys as
Right.
possible?
Yeah.
And there's something that Scott did
That's your
one year,
goal.
that he had like a chalkboard.
General awareness
And if
is
somebody
critical.
had something special that they had to say about what they wanted done, they could write it on there and they would take a picture.
Yeah, we called it our big idea board. So if we invited people, we said, here, if you've got a big idea, tell us on this chalkboard, and if you're comfortable, we'll take a picture and we'll put it in the plan. And people like getting their picture taken and having their big idea on the board in front of a bunch of eyes. So you need a waiver. Taking pictures, you need
A
some
waiver.
stuff that comes with that. But
Right.
Did you
but
ever
it,
use
but,
the
it per, but it personifies the ideas, which I think is kind of cool.
So that's something. And we still have a whole month to talk about anything we want to talk about. We're talking about, right now, we're talking about having a booth.
That's why I came a little late. So you can
Stop
get out of the way.
No, this is how we are going to be presenting the county board's booth at the fair.
Okay.
Okay, the big deal is it's in Building D. Building D is air conditioned, and Building D has food and the best ice cream in the world.
And that is a big deal. I think my oldest child now belongs to the fair board. So,
Gets the most traffic in any building.
Right.
That's a good spot.
Like you
So,
sold your
and we
firstborn for
worked
ice cream
very
that
hard
night?
to make sure we got that. And we ended up with only one. We were hoping to get 2 wide, but we didn't get that
we
this
couldn't be
year.
greedy.
It didn't happen, so that's okay.
The opinion jars too, we had talked about a few different ideas because if we just say, what's your priority? What are your top 3 priorities? And we have the different chapters of the plan, you know, water resources, land use or whatever on there. It almost, we had talked about it almost feeling like we were pitting those ideas against each other when it's like all interconnected.
Right.
So since we're coming up on formulating the land use plan, there was another idea of that we make it more of, what does McHenry County need more of? Residential, commercial, parks,
Yeah.
those sorts of land use, more like a land use survey. And then the last idea was like a visual preference survey where you put up, you know, pretty pictures and ugly pictures, and then people tell you which things they like the best.
But we have
So,
the end of this month and all of next month to put it together, but we have to be ready for August 1st.
yeah.
And
So
when-
does anybody have a preference on that, on doing more of the opinion or priority or land use?
I don't understand quite what, I like your idea of the suggestion box.
Yes, we'll have that regardless.
I like that really well. I don't, are you saying, do we try to steer people to help them with putting together their suggestions?
No.
Or
No.
No,
No, for the, what that picture with the mason jars
Yeah,
is that on each one of the mason jars, we'll have like a different area of the plan. For example, we could do it that way, where we have transportation, water resources, land use, whatever else we
bike
have.
trails.
Yes, so we have those things and say, of these subject areas, what do you think are the most important for McHenry County to be studying? And
And you can say 3, or you can say, you know, how many.
either that, or we say, we put different land use categories like single-family homes or multifamily homes, parks, that sort of thing, and say, what does McHenry County need? What are the top 3 land uses that McHenry County needs more of? And then they would prioritize those.
okay, I think I understand, okay. So one of the things that keeps coming up, and it's not mentioned in here or anywhere ever, and I've mentioned it numerous times, is we have to have open land because of our horse farms. You've got to have hay land, you have to have turnout land, and you have to have land for rotating of pastures. And that, if we don't have that, you know, like we've got no hay land, or there's no place to turn the horses out or anything like that, now you got a problem.
Right.
And we have a huge number for the size of our county and everything else. We have everybody's horses here in McHenry County now. We all know that, right? You know, because the other counties have urbanized so much that people, you would not believe the demand up here And a guy just told me the other day, he said he rides down in Matheson Park. You know where that is? That's in LaSalle County by Starved Rock. He has to make phone calls to see what the weather's gonna be like on account of he's driving all that
That way.
distance. That's a 2-hour drive
So
just to go riding.
So that may be one of the areas that people might be interested in preserving
Yes.
or expanding. You know, I don't know how many acres are in hay, and I see how many acres are in soy and wheat and corn. And none of that is popcorn, that's all feed corn, or generally feed corn. So, you know, where are you gonna go with what you got?
Field corn, not seed.
I'm sorry,
Field corn, not
field
seed.
corn.
Yeah,
No, that's what I meant.
yeah, yeah.
Isn't that what I said?
Seed corn, I thought you said.
Feed,
Yeah, yeah.
feed
She said
corn.
Oh, feed corn,
Feed
okay, I
corn.
misunderstood you there.
That would be
Yeah.
for,
Well, that's another thing is driving over here, I did notice that, you know, you've got a lot of people who are going to no-till, of course, which has been going on for a long time now. But let's not forget that no-till means more, more pollutants because you need to have more chemicals to kill your insects and
well, that's the
weeds
kind of
and
thing we
everything.
have to look at, Pat, and when we get into where we're gonna go. And like, again, like, what can we do to help farmers so that it mitigates some of what it is they have to use? And again, the Soil and Water Conservation District is talking about subsidies that you get for cover crops, for other things that you can do to help things get along so we aren't using so many chemicals, if that's possible. So why wouldn't, we would want to get some input. But I think the people who come to county fairs, the people who are there every day are the people who are farmers and have kids in 4-H and have all the animals and the stuff going on.
Yeah.
The people who come to it are going to be riding it and bringing their kids with and wanting to see what's going on. And they can't wait to get a seed pack if you tell them they're gonna have a butterfly. Maybe, sometime.
Do we have any idea of the demographics of the people who attend the fair?
No.
I was wondering whether it was a random sample of the county or, I mean,
It's a broad section, and I really like Scott's idea to keep it simple, and talking points is critical,
Yeah.
and just to keep it flowing. So, I mean, just to keep it simple, you have technology for the younger folks
Yep.
that want to scan, all right? And so I think that's the key to it.
And that's why I want this to be interactive and set up this way.
Yeah,
Because if you have somebody sitting here and everything's behind you and you say, yes, we're McHenry County and we're the RPC and we're gonna do this, and you show them some kind of map that they can't read, they don't know anything about. Michelle?
Just
Sorry.
getting back to Renee's question about, you know, whether we should do the themes in our plan or more of a land use preference. And I think I would like the land use preference because that is what we're tackling next. And it would help to have a little bit of a straw poll, if you will, you know, of what people want us to do.
Okay.
I like that
Thank you.
too.
Thank you. That's easy.
Scott?
I've been, question for the group, how much, if anything, do you want the DOT's transportation plan to be included in this, if at all? Right, so we're nearing the end of our transportation
Right.
plan, we've got a lot of material that we could present at the fair, but I don't wanna, if you'd rather not confuse the two, because they are separate plans going on
Sure.
separate tracks that talk to one another, maybe this isn't the right venue for our plan, but I'm throwing that out there as something that if you wanted us to bring aboard on the transportation plan, I could definitely arrange that to happen as well.
well, I'd like to see the transportation plan.
Personally, I'd like to see the transportation plan also to have the maps, the regional maps, the county maps, the MC ride, which is, you know, wherever it is right now, what the ability is to get coupons for not-for-profits so that they can ride it easier, or show that MCC has a program that helps students get to class with PACE and that they pay for it so that we are all communicating on that? Yes.
And do
You can't have a
some-
whole table though.
Do you have something that shows areas where you think there are going to be exceptionally large increases in usage of this road, this segment or that
We do,
segment?
yeah, I could bring a board to that effect.
Yeah,
Um,
because
That's good.
I think
Yeah.
that that's something people will
Sure.
be interested in.
Well, and again, I wanted to throw that out there for the discussion, because again, this is Renee's booth, I don't wanna monopolize.
It's Mary's booth.
Well, but if that,
And Mary's
How can
pace,
you do it
so
without
she wants
transportation?
transportation.
right.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what I was thinking. I think people are gonna ask us about it, and it would be nice to
Certainly,
have
because
someone
that's,
to
everybody
point
wants to
them
know about transportation and what's going on. How much does it cost? When can we do it? And that's changing every year that we're doing, and they're doing more and more and more.
Well, you can talk about it, so if you've got the ideas and people are kind of saying, okay, these are the top 3 issues, and there do need to be different ways of getting that information. So like to Perry's point, somebody's gonna wanna go up and take that picture of the QR code and move on, right? Another person is gonna wanna do, you might be able to do all 3. Somebody else is gonna wanna do the big idea board because they're more outgoing. And somebody else might wanna just put on a piece of paper their top 3 choices and throw it in a jar. But then transportation is kind of an offshoot, so I know what you're trying to get at, Scott, in that you don't wanna, because transportation itself is huge, you could take up several tables just with transportation. So it's how do you bring transportation in without overshadowing,
Yeah.
or overwhelming it, yeah. But it is a component, in some sense, I'm really concerned about transportation, well, we've got somebody here, right here, who can talk to you about it, you know, and then that kind of be a segue.
Always understanding where we as the RPC have to focus on things that we can focus on. So, if anybody doesn't have anything else to say right now, please, any ideas that you have, send them to Renee, give me a copy, so I know that she's getting it, and I'm getting it, and I can ask her about it, and she can say, yes, oh, I already did that, or I'll take care of it today. That doesn't happen often. She's really on board with things. So, yes, Garrett.
Just a quick comment, just having long experience of doing the surveys in the municipal environment, we try to stay away from the question of how important is something to you. You know, usually if you're asking, give an example of the city, the variety of services that a city provides, how important is such and such, it's always going to be like police and fire, the rise to the top, right? That doesn't necessarily lead to the conclusion that police and fire need more funding.
Right.
What we'll often do is try to pair that with a very similar question that kind of covers some of the same topics that says, how satisfied are you with these things, right? And then by contrasting the satisfaction and the importance, you can say, yes, it's very important to me, but I'm already satisfied. But something like, it's always roads, are very important to me, but I'm not satisfied, right? And that's where we can say, okay, we've identified that as a priority,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah.
And when we did this exercise for our transportation plan 10 years ago, we literally phrased it that you're telling us where to put your money. You're budgeting for us. We had roads, bike paths, sidewalks, transit as options, and we said, here, how would you spend your money on these 4 different
So
types?
some sort of prioritization or satisfaction, I think, can be more important than just simply, is it important to you?
Yeah, where you spend your dollars, sure, that's a good point.
So we can, and maybe we can set up a small committee to work on this. I'm not gonna ask anybody to say, oh yeah, I'll do it now, but within a couple weeks that we can put people together to get some solid ideas, if you're willing. And anybody else who's not out here today.
I think all
We have
5 members that
assignments.
didn't show up tonight should be on that subcommittee.
Yeah, guess what we did?
Yes, we ought to elect everybody who's not here.
That's true, that's true. Isn't that the way it always goes, Linnea?
But would it also be helpful at some point, and probably by meeting the committee first, but then get something back out to the rest of you to
Yes.
see, okay, here are the ideas, and then that way you get the feedback as quickly as possible. Because meeting only once a month is not gonna cut it. More than-
Well, I'll I'll start.
Did you sign up?
Of course I did. But I only signed up in one spot because I know I'll be signing up in every other blank spot there is,
So that's a sign-up sheet for what, the table or for the committee?
For the
For
table.
the fair.
Oh, I was thinking, oh,
For the
yeah.
committee.
But the-
No, we have to put, people have to think that through for a couple days, maybe by the beginning of next week if you can get back to us. Otherwise, you're stuck with what we want. What I want.
Well, and the seed packets are already ordered, so sorry.
Yes,
You
the
don't
seed
like them,
packets
I'm
already
sorry.
are. And I think we already, everybody's got
Yeah.
mason jars someplace, so I think there's some of that. And it's just, some of it's decorating, somebody's setting up the booth, somebody's setting up, you know, what are we going to do, where are you gonna be? Because there are going to be other people who the county affects that isn't necessarily explicit in our RPC. And if they want to be here and they want to put their stuff in our booth because they aren't at the county fair, but they do have something that's worthwhile going out, then they need to put in some people time to help make that work. And then we can work with that. No? Okay.
How long is the fair?
1st through the 5th, 6th, it's that Tuesday through Sunday.
Usually on Wednesday through Sunday.
Wednesday through Sunday. Tuesday afternoon is when everybody's setting up for whatever.
Starts Tuesday at noon and goes through Sunday at 8 p.m. I think.
Something like that.
But the first week of August.
Yes,
Yeah.
August 1st. More time. Okay, and so not to make this get terribly long, I want to make sure that we get going on the rest of it because there's a lot to cover. We've got to get it done tonight. Hopefully, or unfortunately, we'll try to get it done in the next hour and 3/4. If we can't, we may have to go back a little bit longer, but certainly not a long time. This was just too much fun to talk about. Sorry. Okay, discussion, bills, recommendations. Where am I? That's the new business. Anybody have any other comments on that for today? Then let's slide in. This is Linnea Kustra, who, if you don't know who she is the chairman. Are you the chairman?
She is the chairman.
Well, I just want to make sure. And Charlie's on the same ZBA, so they know everything. And she's a farmer. Unincorporated or incorporated?
We had an LLC. My husband and I are partners.
Okay, gotcha. So, she's visiting us today. Be impressive.
And she worked with me on the 2030 plan and then with your colleagues again on the
Extension?
extension of the 2030 plan.
So she's got a lot of
spark,
And I
since we're all
first
mentioning our
worked
connections.
Yes, you're right. And I first joined the planning commission in 1993.
So,
I served on it till 2006.
so,
That one, so, yeah, been a while.
and she has very influential friends.
I do.
You do.
Oh, okay.
You do.
Yeah, and everybody else gets to meet the president.
Sorry.
Yes, and in fact, I don't think it's a surprise, but on Wednesday, August 2nd, they're going to dedicate the pavilion, rename it and dedicate it to Orion's.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Fair, so that'll be a big day.
Okay,
So
how
I'm sorry,
wonderful.
Yeah.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Orion Samuelson, who's been around ag forever, as the FFA, he flies every place. He dumped his plane up at Gulf Airport one time, but he
He was
is
the farm broadcaster on WGN.
WGN.
For over 50 years.
You're
everybody.
renaming the Hanson Pavilion after him?
Yeah, I think that's what it's going to be, renaming.
That's awesome.
Or else dedicating something, yeah.
Something.
But there's going to be something for Orion
Great.
on Wednesday.
That's
Right.
I
awesome.
signed up for the Wednesday.
So, which is, again, it's, this year is very special year for the fair. Isn't it like 75-year anniversary
I'm
or
not sure.
100-year end? But it's one of those special ones. Otherwise, I wouldn't have cared whether we got here or not. No, that's not. At any rate, let's get going with transportation and mobility then.
So that's where we left off last time, was the transportation and mobility. The goal statement that I have put out there is this chapter. It's a cross-reference to the McHenry County Moves 2050 Transportation Plan. The purpose is to relate those larger topics and policies of the transportation plan to land use and best practices in this plan. And so the first objective that the consultant had put forward was upgrade the roadway system to accommodate future travel demand, reduce crash potential and emissions, and improve pedestrian safety. So I don't think anybody's opposed to those things, but I'm going to defer to Scott now to help you through your conversation of appropriate language and that sort of thing. So.
Well, if it's okay, I want to
Yes.
reread, because it's been a while since I've talked about the transportation plan. If it's okay, I'll read the vision statement for our plan, just so that everybody's
Sure.
aware of sort of how our plan talks to this one. So what our vision statement says is McHenry County envisions a future multimodal transportation system that is complete, connected, and safe for all users. The system is accessible by all, and people and goods move to, from, and through the county efficiently and reliably. The improvements made to achieve this future system need to also protect our most important environmental resources. So that's sort of the big picture, is complete, connected, and safe, accessible by all, it's efficient and reliable, and it protects our environment. So those are sort of the big themes that are flowing throughout our entire plan. And this, this gets to a lot of that, right? This is kind of multiple things all crunched into one. But I think it does capture the essence of sort of where our plan is going. But I kind of want to hear everybody's thoughts here about this goal one or objective one.
Scott, let me ask you a question. There's been a dramatic increase in pedestrian crashes in the last several years. Is there any good research on why?
Yes, there is actually. So it's kind of a combination of 2 or 3 things. So for one, since the pandemic, more people are walking and biking. That's the big thing. So as more people are out on the street using these roadways that were really not designed for them 20 years ago, you happen to have more conflicts between pedestrians, cyclists, and automobiles. So it's increased demand by non-motorized users. The pandemic, different roads still have lower traffic than they used to have pre-pandemic, and so the vehicles that are taking up those roads are traveling more quickly, right? So they're traveling faster, and anytime speed interacts with vulnerable users, you have more of a potential for serious injuries or fatalities. So those are the big things. You're right, Charlie. The non-motorized users, the fatalities for bicyclists and pedestrians are growing much faster than the fatality rate for drivers. And it's something that not only we're paying attention to and trying to counteract, but people at the regional level. CMAP just got a big region-wide grant from the feds to do a safe Streets for All plan, which is going to look primarily at these vulnerable users. IDOT, Illinois Department of Transportation, they're doing a plan that's focused on this as well. And then there's guidance from the feds trying to kind of get all of us moving in the same direction in that respect too. So it's definitely a big issue right now in the industry.
So does this cover it, or is what your statement is that we can improve what that statement is?
One thing we debated internally at the DOT is our goals for our plan. The first one is Vision Zero, safety for all users, right? And we put that first for the strategic reason that that's the most important thing we do. And so when I look at this, safety is in there, but it's sort of at the end.
Yeah.
So maybe, just a recommendation maybe would be to sort of place safety first and foremost.
Right.
That's the most important thing when it comes to transportation. All the other stuff is important, but safety, I think, comes before everything else.
So,
That's terrible. Yours is much better. That just stinks. And I'll tell you what, the IDOT and the US DOT have both had terrible transportation plans for 40 years. And so it doesn't surprise me at all. It is as hideous as this right here. And what you're talking about too with the cars and so forth, I think you're absolutely right. You know, I live on Bull Valley Road and we have tons of bicyclists, horsemen, people walking, people jogging, you name it. And cars are going a lot faster. Of course, wearing their masks, I don't think that helps, you know. They're still wearing masks and driving around. And also, we've had semi-trucks sneaking onto these roads, and they're not supposed to be on these roads, and they're sneaking on there now. So that's another problem. But I just want to tell you that I think McHenry County is probably thinking more correctly about the protection for everyone, because I hate to say this, but you know, the thing is that the roads weren't made for interstate traffic. They were made for horses and buggies and for wagons and cattle. They were not made for interstate travel. And how much interstate, here's another question. How much interstate travel is going to be going on right now in the future? The cost of whether you're using electric cars or whether you're using gas-powered vehicles is extremely expensive. How much is going to be going on anymore? Is it going to keep increasing? Wages are not keeping up with any of that. So I think there's a very big question of, well, exactly, you know, like they're acting like future travel demand. Well, it could be zero. You know, we just driving over here, you wouldn't believe all the people who are walking. And I know that they're walking on account of they don't have a car, because they're walking down the street here, whole families and people walking to work and stuff like that.
So that was the original objective, and I get what you're saying, and I certainly get what Scott is saying. Is there a way that we can think of to incorporate what the county's vision is to be part of the RPC vision? Carolyn?
Well, all I was going to ask was, because this is kind of separate from the goals and key recommendations, which the entire pile is at my house right now, so I don't have it in front of me, of paperwork. But in the actual document that was done, that we're reviewing, but we're just looking at the highlights, was there a paragraph under transportation and mobility, or did it go right into the goals and key recommendations? Because what I'm seeing here is that we've got a lot going on in one sentence. If the priority is safety, then it's safety. And then, but the more to the vision statement that they have in their plan is what falls under transportation and mobility. Where are we trying to go? And it does make sense that it would mirror what we already have, since it's a good document and a great vision. And then the first objective is that Vision Zero. It's safety for all users, and with an emphasis on pedestrians, because that's where we're having our biggest problem. So here, this is it,
So what
right?
we had talked to them about, they didn't, the way that they structured the
Oh, there it is. Okay.
memo is they didn't have an overarching goal. But at the last meeting, you guys said clearly, we want an overarching goal for each chapter and then the objectives.
Mhm.
So this is just what I put together. But what we can do is give them a version of what Scott read.
The vision statement.
Yeah.
Or give
Yeah,
them
good with
that
it.
exact
Yes.
statement,
Yeah.
either way.
Absolutely.
And so that would be
That would
our
replace that.
overarching
Yeah.
goal
Correct.
there.
Yes.
That's right.
And then it would go into the objectives, and this was the consultants.
Yes.
Well, and I'll say, you know, I'm looking ahead on the next 3 goals here, and there are a lot of overlaps, but this first one does kind of incorporate our goal 1 and our goal 3 all together, and then the others sort of match up with ours. We sort of have different language that we use, but this one kind of tries to do 2 things in one, whereas
Yeah.
ours, we have 5 goals, you have 4, right?
Oh.
So,
Well, and safety isn't just I mean, that sort of implies safety is automobile versus automobile crashes, and
Right.
the safety covers all modes of transportation, although automobile versus everything else is an issue.
And don't forget, the last part of policies of the transportation plan to efficient land use and best development practices. I don't even know how that works in there, but that's okay. Michelle?
Could we just take your vision statement, use it as a goal, and take your goals and use this as our, because it feels like it should just be the same, right?
I don't see why not, unless this
Yeah.
group
No, I
does, I mean, maybe I should go through the rest of my goals first before you guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we already talked about goal one is Vision Zero, and what that
Yeah.
is basically is we need 0 fatalities on our roadways, okay? Our timeline is by year 2050, when this plan's supposed to be adopted and completed. We don't want anyone dying on our roadways, period. The second goal is complete and connected multimodal network. So that kind of gets to P&D's goal number 3, right? Complete and connected multimodal network. Whereas what's here is connect bicycle and pedestrian facilities into a cohesive countywide network. That's kind of the same thing. We're getting to the same place.
Well, 2 would be included there too.
That's true.
Where?
Transit options, right. And
Yeah.
we sort of get to transit stuff on our goal 4. But so goal 3 for us, we have efficient movement of people and goods, right? So we can't forget that most people use their vehicles to get around.
Yeah.
And so that sort of is already encompassed in here.
Mhm.
Accommodating future travel demand, improve the roadway system, that's sort of what our goal 3 is as well.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you mentioned goods as well as people, because we gotta move goods as well as people.
A lot of people don't think about the freight side of things,
Yeah.
even though we don't have nearly
Well,
as much freight.
I mean,
as-
something that affects people in the unincorporated area very heavily is the movement of grain,
That's correct.
Yeah.
which is largely by truck these days.
It's something different.
And then our goal 4 is mobility and accessibility for all. And that really, when you get down to what that means, really we're focusing on if you can't drive for whatever reason, disability, income, you need a way to get around town still. And usually that's by transit, right? And making a transit system and again, that kind of corresponds to goal 2 here on the sheet. And then the 5th one is protected environmental resources. So for that, kind of overlaps with goal number 4, expand sustainable transportation alternatives, right? So for us, goal 5, protected environmental resources is going to mean making sure we're cognizant of, not destroying wetlands and native species, but also encouraging EV adoption for the climate and health as well. So we kind of, that was sort of our attempt to encompass a lot of different environmental type
Well,
goals.
and reducing, which the county's been a leader on from the beginning, reducing toxic de-icing materials.
That's part of that as well, yeah. So
I think those would
I'm
be great.
perfectly comfortable if you wanted to take our 5 goals and just plop them on, that would work for us.
And we have a quorum. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I will make a motion that we do that, because I think theirs are much better than
Oh,
what we
yeah.
got
Michelle
here.
is nodding highly,
Seconded.
so she's going to second it.
Well, and these were, a
That's-
lot of public engagement went into these.
Right,
So
I mean,
not
there's
just
so
pulling
much
these out of
that you've
thin
been
air.
doing already. We don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
If there's somebody who knows more about what's going on than we do about that particular area, that's what we need to do.
Yeah,
Is there anything missing now? I'm not saying these are the only 5 goals that should be
No.
there, but is there anything this group wants to also include as part of this?
well, I think that it is possible to locate improvements in a fashion to either encourage or discourage
Development?
development. And I'm not sure how much what the county does at that level has that effect, but certainly major highways have that effect.
Yep.
But Route 23 does not want to be developed. We just said that in our last meeting, we had a discussion about that. The Route 23 corridor does not want to be developed off of Route 90. Who talked about that? Somebody brought that up.
Somebody
No,
not
I
here?
think it was the opposite.
No,
But they're
that-
trying very hard to develop around the.
Yeah, but
interstate.
I'm
The
talking
people
about
who
the
live there.
people of the community don't want
Oh,
23
of course.
developed northward from 90. And of course, the question is, how much water is there around 90 and all of that? That's a whole other issue. But if you remember, somebody had mentioned that about Route 23, that they didn't want development along Route 23. And I think that goes true, that's true also for 47. 47, some of these widenings of 47. And if you look at the size of animals trying to cross these giant expressways and these giant Randall Road and these places, they can't make it. And it's as though we as humans are trying to cross a 300-foot roadway. Can you make it? I
Well,
hope so.
Route 47 has always been meant to be at least 2 lanes on every side. So
And it is.
whether or not the animals can read, they will adapt as far as they can. They can't on Randall Road. There's no way. People can't adapt to 11 lanes to cross.
It's crazy.
Carolyn?
Okay, that is great. I love what you just said, because your point is really well made. And I think that that is something that we could incorporate, opportunities, so Algonquin. So I want to make 2 points, and I want to get back to that. The first point is the roads, how we end up developing the roads is not transportation coming in here and saying we want an 8-lane road. They come in with an 8-lane road because Algonquin put in this development, Lincoln Hills put in this, and Crystal Lake did this. That's how we got Randall Road, right? It wasn't because we envisioned Randall Road was going to be 11. I've been on my first 3-lane left turn my entire life off of Algonquin to Randall. So that's what we do with our roads is really in response to what our communities are doing in terms of their growth patterns, right? So, but to your point, we do have a situation where it's very difficult to get animals across the road, and that's a big deal to me because, you know, we want to save all these conservation areas, we want to keep open space, but we keep fragmenting these areas, and they have no chance. So Algonquin then funded an underpass. Now, did the animals get there eventually? A lot of them will figure it out. Randall Road had some similar opportunities. Some did not go through based on some decisions made at the municipal level, but this is something that we need to actually incorporate. This is something we have to get our communities to understand and say this: if you're going to build a road and you're going to expand like this, then you're going to get people across the road and you're going to allow animals to get across the road. So in Randall, they had to open up the box, I think it's called. It's like the culvert that allows the water to flow, but because it had to be enlarged based on these new higher flood situations, it's actually wide enough for animals to get under. And it's really along the waterway, so it is actually a good place. But what we need to keep those in mind. And I think, thank you very much for bringing that up. I think that's something, and maybe that has to also be incorporated here. Not necessarily under a goal, but under how do we achieve that goal.
Well,
Right.
and then
Protecting the environment.
we're also kind of stuck with, and to your point, Route 47 is a state road. It has always been set to eventually be, their plan for the next 100 years, or whatever it is to expand. 120 was supposed to be expanded. Right now, when money is available, that's why they expanded that section on 47 to be 2 lanes over the bridge. So that as long as the money's available, you start there and then you fill in as you can. Even Randall Road was like that. You knew it needed to be, it's considered a freeway. It's not just a road, but 47 is a state road that is meant to be and supposed to be, according to the state, used for particular things, and you have to come up with those standards. So then it gets down to the municipalities and what they're willing to do and how much they can do with it. Am I wrong?
No, not a bit.
Okay, so it's another one of those things that, yes, we have some control, but no, we don't. So if it's supposed to be that something that the state has already planned that you never knew, it's like O'Hare Airport going in, and then somebody says, but I didn't know when I moved in here that O'Hare Airport was gonna be here, or that it was going to expand. Well, yeah, come on. Yeah, we have to look at those kind of things too, that when 47 is expanded, that those kind of those transit areas for animals can be worked out. I've seen where they've had huge places where they built a bridge over the roads so that the animals could travel. Now, I'm not talking about maybe some of the animals that we're talking, who cares about a raccoon? No, we do. We care about raccoons, we care about armadillos, we care about everything that there can be, but you never know. The deer are getting killed all the time, or they're destroying our cars. It depends on, what's going on. So there are those kind of things that we have to look at too, and how much control do we actually have to be able to do anything. But I like the idea of using the goals that the county has come up with so far, because they're just enough ahead of us, and they've done a lot of investigating that we have not been able to do, and we don't have, even the consultants don't have the information, or they may have it now.
We have the benefit of being very specific, right? This
There you
plan,
go.
your plan needs to be very broad, and touch on a lot of issues.
Right. So as long as this can be that way, are we okay at this moment to use that,
Yes.
Yes.
that and go on that way?
Yes.
Okay, we've got everybody saying yes, 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 yes. Did we have to?
Wait, one thing though about the underpasses and overpasses is, in England, they do it for frogs.
Sure.
In England, they do it for frogs. In Michigan, they do it for tortoises.
Tortoises.
Because they're
Yeah.
very, okay, and they spent years figuring out what to do, and they have been very successful. I inspected hydro projects up there for 20 years, and they've been very successful with that. And so it can be done, but one thing about the Illinois Department of Transportation, which has been broke since 2012 or something, they don't have a dime. They're just spending federal money that doesn't even exist. Let's just be honest about that. And they set up this whole situation that they're gonna do this and they're gonna do that, but they do not consult at all. I know because I have consulted with them. I have been to their meetings and everything else down to Springfield for years. They pay no attention to the public. They just blunder along, and then something goes wrong and they scratch their heads like monkeys.
But for tonight, we're going to accept the county's.
Yes.
Let's go there for the
Yes.
beginning, because otherwise, we've got 45 minutes to get through a whole bunch of stuff. So let's go on to historic resources, which I believe is the next one.
Historic resources, this is pretty simple, straightforward. The purpose of the chapter is just to recognize the importance of preserving our, that should say built past. Preservation of historic resources is important to maintaining the charming character of McHenry County. The only objective that the consultant put in was preserve McHenry County's rural resources. So another thing that we had talked about last time is and something that I feel like strongly enough that I'm going to say it here, that we should also have in here is the recognition of those historic crossroads and
Yes.
building on the historic crossroads in the land use plan and that sort of thing. So.
If we have something to do with historic preservation and it's along some crossroads, and that's where you can build up, you can put whatever you need to, and come on, everybody loves to go through Alden, and people love to go through Ridgefield, just so that they can see something that they don't see otherwise. Why not have those kind of crossroads and expand on those, especially for the farmers even who are close by, who can also sell their vegetables and whatever at a stand next to something else that we're kind of working with. So I like the idea of adding the crossroads part.
Another, I'm sorry, oh, I thought Michelle had her hand up.
Linnea,
Another
I was
potential.
going to.
Excuse me,
You go
Linnea,
first.
you can always pipe in.
I
Just-
can, I'm not a member, I'm here just as a.
No, I understand,
We'd
but,
like to hear from you.
but you have the historic knowledge to go along with, but in the meantime, Michelle needs to say something.
No, Renee can go first.
Oh, no, I was just gonna suggest another one, and now I can't think what it is, so go ahead. Michelle.
I only ask that because she's here and she's very knowledgeable, so let's keep all the knowledge at the table.
Oh, yeah, no, I want to hear what Linnea has to say as well. I'm wondering if we can encourage the county's like development of diverse backgrounds history. Like, you know, I know Gloria Vanderhoff has been doing a lot of work around McHenry County's Underground Railroad.
Right.
Do we have an opportunity to, you know, ask for that to be fleshed out and formalized and included in our county's history
Great
here?
idea, I like it. That is a great idea.
Carolyn?
No, Perry was
Oh,
first.
Perry, sorry, everybody's going.
Also, I'd like to encompass the downtown historical, because every town in McHenry County has a downtown except for Lake in the Hills. And they're trying to find one, because I talked to their planning commissioners, and they're trying to figure out how they can have a historic downtown in Lake in the Hills. And I've always wanted the county to endorse the Main Street program, the National Main Street program, that would allow granting and historical preservations of your downtowns. So I think that should be included in the historical resources.
Don't have to sell me, I'm a former Main Street manager. so
Yeah.
Yeah,
it-
well,
it's
yeah,
a
For a long
but-
time, Illinois discontinued its Main Street grants, but it started them back up a couple of years ago. And
50 million in 2020.
Yeah, and
They
there's a significant amount available once again. And there was the state Main Street program had gotten pretty dormant, but it's much more active. One thing I'd like to, I don't know what we do about it, but there's a significant amount of Native American history in this county that is pre-settlement. I mean, my grandfather collected 5 bushels of Indian artifacts,
Yeah, very good.
arrowheads up to firestones, hatchets, the whole 9 yards, including a ritual human sacrifice thing.
Thank you.
That was supposedly 1,200 years old. And
Okay.
that stuff is around the waterways and.
This is
that-
on Creek in western McHenry County, there were a lot of Indian artifacts found along that too.
Yeah.
Farmers have collected them over the years.
And we ought to encourage looking into it and developing that history in whatever way we can.
I think we could word Michelle's objective to include both of those. What I just jotted down was encourage more diverse cultural, and then I stopped. So somebody give me the words for that. Read it again.
The inclusion of diverse backgrounds and demographics in our county's history.
And native heritage,
So,
Diverse.
go ahead.
just to add to that, so I mean, you're talking about indigenous, you're talking about black history, races, Latinas is working with a couple of organizations, but they just had an open house at Jorge's Farm. off of Lawrence, somewhere in there
Yep.
where that map was. And the idea, and Kurt Bagalka was there from the Historical Society, with the idea that you're trying to also capture the history of people who've been here, because the people, we think of immigrants, but people have been here for a long time from the immigrant community.
We have had a lot of truck farms in McHenry County where we had a lot of migrant labor for many years.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that,
Thinking about Aaron's Twin Garden Farms, they.
Well, those truck farms actually go back to right after the Civil War. And Harvard and Woodstock had significant Hispanic populations starting in the 1870s. And so some of those families are fourth and fifth generation citizens because they, after 10 years of commuting, they settled.
They decided to stay.
so, I guess what I was gonna get at was, when we looked at what the visions were for the Transportation Department, I know that the Historical Society is trying to add in this cultural history that they want to start capturing in the form of stories and, and identifying these people who have been here a long time. And, oh, gosh, I was gonna say something. And the other thing I want to say real quickly before I forget, but so getting into this cultural history, which we're talking about regardless of the culture, but also the historical structures. So it's interesting that we talk about the rural resources, which is great, but there's a lot of historical buildings that we're struggling to maintain. And we have the whole, if they want to come and landmark buildings on somebody's property, how does that work? And, the fact that there's historical structures on like the conservation district sites, and it's difficult to maintain these and make sure that they stay, the roof is secure so that they don't just deteriorate. So, there's a lot of cultural history here. It's how do we add all of that in?
So including Michelle's input, how about preserve McHenry County's rural resources and cultural history? To just leave it in one line for the moment, because we still have 6 months worth of diving down into
that's fine.
what it is and where we're gonna go with
I
it.
think
So
that's good.
let's start there. Just one last one because we need to go.
I think I would like it to be a separate goal because I think in many cases, there isn't a lot of formalized cultural history.
Okay.
And so it does require actually discovering it. And then one other thing I just wanted to add here too is, do we know what native lands McHenry County is on? And could we include that in our planning guide, like naming the lands that we're on?
Investigating, interesting.
There's a website where you can actually look that up, and I think it's an important part of our history that we
I
can.
do too, but I kind of see that as the drilling down the recommendation under your bigger objective.
Yeah, no, not as a
Okay.
third goal or anything,
Okay.
but just
Okay.
in the plan somewhere.
But could you, the overall goal isn't even up there, but then we have the objectives. So one objective is your rural resources that are historical. Your second goal is your cultural history. Your third goal is your structural history. Those pieces of, those structures that once they're gone, they're gone. And that can include, the structural could include the crossroads, but I think you need more than one objective in this.
Yes.
Yes.
So I have
Yes,
a whole
yes,
list.
she has them all, listed separately, she just has to mention.
And the other one is our, the historic oak groves and that sort of thing.
Right,
I
like the
think that
natural history.
that really needs to be part
So
of it
four.
as well.
Does
So-
anybody know if we still have the Trail of History?
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
Because Ed Collins was a good source on Native America
Yeah,
in McHenry County.
okay, now, we don't want to drown in this one, but we're into water resources. Well, we could. Or we could consider it a drought and we'll just,
She had worked on that all day and Linnea was the only one that challenged it. Sorry, Mary.
but let's say, we are always focused, but there's always got to be some mirth,
Okay.
okay?
So water resources, just the kind of overarching goal, the purpose of this chapter, like with transportation, we have a water resources action plan. So this chapter is a cross-reference to that water resources action plan, and the purpose is to, again, speak to the broader policies that are in the RAP and how they can help or work together for our goal of orderly development throughout the county. And then the first objective that they suggested was create a stormwater and natural resources capital improvement plan with new development.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Yes.
I think what it means
Get
is,
the word witness
when
right.
new development comes in, that they create a stormwater and natural resources capital improvements. I think what they're looking for, I'm not sure.
I think that word with at the end is throwing me off. Is it for new development perhaps?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it's more for the new development that it adhere to or be part of a in this case, municipalities,
Yeah.
stormwater
I'm
natural
just wondering,
resources.
what's a capital improvement plan for?
Right, because we don't have like stormwater systems and things that you would normally think of that would fit into a capital improvement plan. Does anybody have the document with them now?
No, I have it.
Oh, do you have it?
Yeah, yeah, it'll just take a second.
What did they say under that?
Okay, so the current state of stormwater management, McHenry County requires the creation and maintenance of monitoring activities for new development. This process also requires that these developments establish dedicated funding to maintain stormwater infrastructure and self-report insufficiencies and repairs. Conversely, the same development or the eventual caretakers of the properties lack proper knowledge or desire to follow through on facilitating and needing maintenance to upkeep private stormwater facilities. This creates the need for more consistent and achievable stormwater maintenance and management proposals.
You're getting quiet.
Sounds like maybe like a bond
That's
program?
what it is, and
Well,
we're already
so-
doing it, and that's just worded really
Yeah.
not well.
Read the
What we do
recommendations.
is we
Step by
require
SS.
new development, we require a backup SSA. So we require everyone to create the SSA so that if someone stops maintaining their stormwater management systems or whatever, the county has a mechanism to raise the funds to step in and do that maintenance themselves. So it's a lot simpler than what this is implying.
And we already have it, so why
And we
would,
have it.
Yeah.
this sounds like we don't have that in place.
Well,
So if you're talking CIP specifically, capital projects, you know, I think a lot of our codes, for example, would talk about, you know, roadway improvements or water and sewer line or even water towers or sewer plant expansions that have to come as a capital portion of a new development. And I think this is just suggesting that we make sure that stormwater and the capital needs of stormwater management are included in that development process. I think is what it's
Do you want me to read the recommendations that
Yes.
came from this? Okay, so
Loudly.
review opportunity to improve McHenry County stormwater management ordinance by introducing language for Stormwater Management Commission to consider. Stormwater Management Commission provides vehicle for language to be considered by a technical advisory committee to review and weigh pros and cons in the development engineering community while providing language suitable for adoption. Stormwater Management Commission reviews language and provides opportunity for community feedback. Feedback is reviewed for adoption in McHenry County Stormwater Management Ordinance.
And I would say that that gets repeated throughout. If you go down through the document, almost every goal has the exact same recommendation.
Let's
So-
talk about it,
yeah.
review it, and
Right, so
Oh, that's weird.
I would think that under water resources, that if you're gonna go by goals, what's a goal? Don't even look at this for a minute. What's the goal? What do you want out of water resources?
Perry?
I'm disappointed in our consultant on this chapter. I'm
Okay.
totally disappointed. It's totally confusing, and he breaks it down into, he doesn't break it down in protection of our pristine water. He doesn't define our water of aquifer, cleanliness, and we have the best water in the state, okay? Then he goes into stormwater management, which is confusing for everybody. And we understand it here as a committee, but most average person does not understand that. And he doesn't do a good job of defining it. I would send him back to do a better job. That's what I would do. I mean,
Well, and I think what I'm hearing from Carolyn, if I'm correct, Carolyn, is objective number one that we have is protection of our water resources. And you're saying that's something
Is there
that isn't
groundwater
stated that
resources
simply in
specifically?
here.
Groundwater specifically?
Right, but I mean, in what ways? I mean, we could talk, we have water conservation, we have water quality.
right.
We have, you know.
Water source, protection of water source. I mean, he doesn't go into that. It's confusing to me.
Well, even if you think about, even because with stormwater, we always treat water as being bad. We get it off the land and then we push it off, but even with the detention basins that we have to put in, so that you don't have that runoff, it's now sitting in a big pond that's actually not recharging anything. And generally, the way that they are designed, because they're not really designed, more newer ones are designed more properly, but they don't filter the pollutants, and they might slowly enter at that point, but they're not recharging their seras, they're not cleaning the water before it gets there. So there's a lot of things, you're right, there's a lot of things that are involved in what is important about our water. And it, when you get into capital, like new development, well, we're gonna get to the point where we're gonna need to start implementing water recycling,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
And that new development needs to
And
be
that
able.
means gray line. That's a concept, you know, that we started a pilot back in the day. But I'm just saying that define our water, its source and its importance. That has to be first. Now, how do we protect it, and how do we maintain it, and how do we make it flourish? I mean, these are the things that, I can understand, but this is very confusing to me.
If it's confusing to you, imagine what it is to the guy on the
Right.
street, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not everybody knows how to, well, if Ellie was here, she could tell us all the plants that you can put in to make sure that you're filtering your runoff. And she, unfortunately, you love her. Love her.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think a lot of our detention basins really ought to be devices for transferring the water, to cleaning it and getting it into the aquifer. And by and large, they just hold it for a little while until it evaporates or wanders into the next field. And,
So would your goal be to use stormwater detention for aquifer recharge?
where that's appropriate. I mean, there's some places that it is and some places that it isn't. But right now,
Where
it's just,
applicable.
yeah, it's just really to prevent flooding in the local area is the way it's been engineered up to now without any thought beyond that. And we want to clean it if it needs to be cleaned, and where we can put it back in the aquifer, we want it.
And you're also getting to like conservation efforts. I mean, I know that there's gonna be a lot in here that we can't make municipalities do, you know. But again, a lot of this is strongly encouraging or giving incentive, whatever you wanna call it. I mean, because part of the reason, we have, I guess I was liaison to the Northwest Water Planning Alliance, and he actually came in and did a presentation at the county board last year and talked about how over time, our population has grown in this country, but we use less water than we did years ago because of the fact that we've gotten so much better at, you were talking earlier about water savings and the production. Weren't you talking about that earlier, before we even started? But
Yeah.
some of the mechanisms that are used now are using such a lot less water. And so, but by making sure that our building codes include that, or new development has to taking a deeper dive into this, because a lot of development is going up without a lot of consideration about where that water is going to come from.
So back to Perry's point then, your consultant understands that this is your concern, and yet you feel like he just didn't write it properly to reflect your concerns. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think it's boilerplate
I was
and,
gonna say that.
That's what it
It's-
looks like to me.
yeah, it's
Yes.
Yeah.
boilerplate
Not a lot of
and
thought
it's
put into
not
it.
much thought.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me too.
Michelle?
It feels like the goals are actually recommendations. And I feel like we could try to provide some feedback about what direction, so like Carolyn, I mean, going to the things that you listed off, which I agree with, you know, encouraging more, you know, what is it, aquifer recharge instead of water retention, you know, just different
Yes.
things like this.
Definition, a definition of where our water source is. It's the aquifers.
Yeah.
Most people think we get it out of Fox River. So we have to redefine that so the people know and they're proud of it. And then how do we protect that?
Do we want to provide some suggestions about goals? So maybe Carolyn, if you want to start. I know you might have all of them for us, but.
No, because I actually was just trying to have conversations with different people, because this is not my, I mean, this isn't my area of expertise, so.
Can we offer Scott Griner up and say?
I just
Or
said
Scott
like-
Kuykendall and say.
Sorry, go ahead and address them.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, so I did actually have a little bit of a conversation with Scott, and he did kind of dive into that, and some of the things that he identified were water conservation, pollution prevention, groundwater recharge, water quality, and stormwater management.
There you go.
So those are the things that we need them to concentrate on before the meeting on the 29th.
Got it.
And he's actually come up with some recommendations.
But I think that that's what Michelle is saying, that's kind of how I see this too, is that these goals that they gave us are pretty specific when there's bigger, broader concepts that we want as the goals.
I also wanted to share that I reached out to Mary McCann because she'd mentioned, you know, concerns about the plan's lack of addressing water resources in her resignation letter, and I asked her to specify with me where she sees room for improvement and what she sees as insufficient. And she's said that she's going to get back to me, so I'll share that once I have it.
The way I see it, and this is something that I've already warned the consultant about, is you can see it in this document. They have sub-consultants, and you can see that a sub-consultant wrote this. It's not the same language as other chapters. And they've got to do a better job of that. Because this, to me, is very specific, very into the weeds. It isn't the higher level, broader concepts. Water conservation is in there. It's, you know, it's just not stated that simply. And I think that's what we need them to do with this.
Oh, I
Just
think
format
that
it more like the other ones where the goals are stated more simply.
when they include develop a salt management plan,
Oh, I was-
obviously they haven't looked into anything that we do.
Well, I actually had a lot of back and forth with them on that. Because, yeah, I thought it was a little offensive since McHenry County has been the leader in that. But even in speaking to Scott Kuykendall, he said he can see where it should be in there, but it should be something more like expand our program to the municipalities, or, you know, do more in that regard.
Well, we
Big
all,
abusers for the private,
Yes,
parking
and
lots and
expand
so forth.
education to the
Yeah.
general public, yes.
but we also already have some pamphlets that talk about salt, what you can do on your private. We have to encourage that kind of stuff, and maybe in mailings that we send
Well-
out for something else, on your tax bill.
But
Send
instead
something
of
in there about
develop-
your water, send something in
Yeah.
there.
Instead of
the
developing,
county
it
used
should be
to
broad.
do a training for snow removal people on the ice.
Yeah.
Do they still do that?
We do
Yes.
that every year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's necessarily as advertised as it might be.
I mean, we get pretty good reach, but we probably do
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
So what happens is that's an overarching, that doesn't look like what we do. and
Well,
to
I
make
just
it make sense.
That
That,
expand our salt
Perhaps.
management plan to the
To
general
change that.
public.
right, to
Or
change
something
that
along
one to
those
that.
lines.
But from what I'm gonna give the direction that Perry gave, is to rewrite this section.
Yeah, I just like that.
Yeah,
So
rewrite it.
they can listen to your conversation here, so say everything you wanna say here, and then we will tell them to rewrite it.
Because it's always good to know what's wrong, but we need to know, if you know what's wrong, what opportunities do we have that we don't know about? What, to know what we don't know, to see what we can do to improve. But if we don't know that, all we know is there's a problem.
Yeah.
So we need to get past that to get into what we want to be able to positively do, because there are 10 of us right now. And we need to have everything that we can hold on to know that we can improve. But if we don't know anything to begin with, except something isn't working, Barry, rewrite it. Okay, I got it. That's okay. I'm good with that. And if we're good with that, then figure it out. What do we want them to tell us? And then let's move on, because we still have 4 more
Right,
pages.
so
I
I
hate
just-
to say it that way, but we kind
Yeah.
of,
Can I just add something real quickly? Because just to be fair, I did have the conversation, and I understand that there's reasons to include it or not include it. But, you know, part of the conversation we were having was, having either a separate section on water resources or which I still think is actually a good idea, but the way he outlined this was by putting that idea, that concept within each of the different chapters. So like under land use development, it was, you know, several ideas. You know, implement and encourage the use of nature-based solutions such as landscaping. And, you know, when you develop, and with water, I think it was, like, you know, you're not building something without knowing where your water source is coming from, or you're not building without making sure that your building is up to code.
Right.
So that, you know, so there's actually quite a bit of information in here. And actually providing, you know, where are we drawing down our aquifers, and where having some kind of visual, where in the county is drawing what kind of water from where, and how quickly, like Huntley is literally on the sandstone aquifer, right? And there's only so long that that's gonna last for them. They've gotta really consider what their longer term options are. I think we're drawing down in Cary, in the southeast corner as well.
Mhm.
So having that visual and looking at our land use, and even where you develop in you know, sensitive aquifer areas, you know. So I don't know, I think there's just a lot that needs to go into it.
So to the consultant's credit, they have what Scott put together that he shared with you. So they have those things already. And there was some data that they were really interested in trying to acquire, which they're working on now. It's not really in the format to get to what you're talking about, Carolyn, but they are working on that to try to massage
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
data to give us more specific information like that. So to say rewrite it, I mean, I think they'll get it.
Yeah.
They'll get it.
and they can go back to the tape from this and say, see what it is he had to say, so we can put it in. Because it was very succinct, it was very,
Yeah.
it was right on point, so let's work with that.
And then another one they had suggested was develop stormwater quality criteria for discharge to identified impaired waters. I don't think anybody is opposed to that, but again, that's more of a recommendation in my mind to the pollution control.
Yeah.
I wanna know what the 303D listed waters are.
They're listed.
They're listed.
There's a
Okay,
list.
are there 303?
There are not, no. That's statistic, but I will
Okay.
get it to you. Jen, do you know one off the top of your head?
No, I don't know. I was just going to add something.
Sure.
From a historical perspective that you might be interested in, is back in 2007, when there was, before we had the housing crash and all
Right.
that stuff, 6 and 7, there was an effort because there had been studies done of the aquifer, and how the development was going to continue to drain our aquifers as it came west. And there was an effort on the part of people in McHenry, Boone, and DeKalb County to form a water authority like there is in other parts of Illinois,
Yeah.
to try and control those aquifers so that these municipalities couldn't just keep building and building up to the country and taking more water, that then this water authority would have the, the opportunity to be able to look at that and see how much they were taking. So the realtors put a lot of money into that so that it was voted down, but it was a real grassroots effort. I was part of that.
And there's nothing that says we don't need it now, either.
So we never
Especially
got off the
looking
ground.
towards 2050. If people didn't understand it in 2007, maybe
And it got
they'll.
voted down. Yeah, we had it on the ballot. But to get it on the ballot, I was in a courtroom in DeKalb County, and there were like 40 men representing all these developers and real estate and municipalities that were fighting us to try and even get it on the ballot. And Farm Bureau was very supportive of it in all three counties, because it preserves the aquifers in the rural areas, and so that farmers would continue to have the water. And so
Well, maybe some of
that's
that
how I
has
got
changed.
involved with it.
Maybe some of their mindset has changed just because they've had 2008 until now to figure it out that we're in a hurt.
Well, it did raise awareness. I mean, McHenry County got a lot more involved in groundwater recharge. DeKalb County named somebody then, it just raised the awareness of people that, yes, water is not infinite, in these areas, and we're needing to do something, because if we continue to develop like we have, like Huntley in the southeast part of McHenry County, we could see, we called it the March of the Red Townships, coming out from Chicago, that, we're pulling more than was sustainable at that time.
Plus,
Just
they're
for-
dead now.
Thank you.
They're dead. Those people who were opposing.
Oh, geez. Okay, we need to move on a little bit.
I just thought you might like that.
No, I like that idea, but
Perspective.
that's TMI here.
Yes.
Just a thought.
Well, we're all gonna be someday.
And then,
What are they gonna listen to? So, do we need to spend more time on this now?
Let's just
Because,
run through the last one.
okay,
Identify opportunities to share municipal sewer and water. I don't think anybody would be opposed to that one, huh?
no,
Okay. Investigate programs to reduce soil loss and improve soil health. We also, that's repeated from the ag section. And develop a surface water quality catalog of McHenry County. I'm not even sure what that one is either, but again, that to me is probably more of a recommendation than a goal. So, all right. Thank you, Mary.
look at this. We're getting it.
And then anything else with water? So I jotted down protection of groundwater, use stormwater retention, detention to recharge aquifers, pollution prevention.
I thought what we were really doing, so we had the themes up here, which you guys can agree with or not agree with.
Mhm.
Getting into some of those or getting then down in those key recommendations, so I don't know. But maybe they are the goal, I don't know. So I'm sorry, could you say them again, that you have for the goals?
So what I had jotted down was protection, that you guys had thrown out, protection of groundwater, use stormwater retention, detention to recharge aquifers, and pollution prevention.
Yeah, I think that the stormwater, I was just goals were I don't know how you would say it. I mean, he had water conservation, pollution prevention, groundwater recharge, water quality, and stormwater management. Which I think what you're saying is they already have, right?
But it's drilled down, so I want them to make them broader.
Can we do something very high up,
Yeah.
center groundwater availability on all development
Wouldn't it,
approvals or something like that.
is that a goal or is that a recommendation though? Because all of our goals have been broader, like pedestrian safety. We don't say, we're gonna have a crosswalk with this on, at every development. It's more of a broader goal.
Yeah, but like centering, groundwater on your decision-making process doesn't like necessarily
Oh, I see what you're
prescribe
saying.
how to do it, it's just saying like that needs to be a consideration for every decision we're making.
Yeah, and I think that's what he's done in here. He's incorporated that and yeah, you're right.
So like,
You're right.
like center,
When you say-
considerations for groundwater
When
and
you
all of our
say
decisions.
he
of the
has
county.
included all, are you saying?
When I had the conversation
With
with
Scott.
Scott, so
Right.
you asked me who I had the conversation with.
Right, well,
I-
that's fine, as long as you've got something that I'm not reading, and she's talking about but isn't reading, so at least we know who is talking about it and what it is, and we'll get a copy of that from Scott that you can send out to everybody,
Yes.
please, to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing, at least on the same level. And thank you, Carolyn, for talking with him about that stuff individually.
Oh, sure, yeah, I was just getting some clarification.
I
because
get it,
just
that's what we're here for. There are things that we need to be able to, if you know who to talk to, and you can, please. If it comes down to one of our consultants that you want to talk to, let Renee or I know, and we'll make sure to say, yeah, because remember, you talk to a consultant, you're talking about money at a time. So make sure that it's worthy of the money that we're putting forth to do that. Otherwise, maybe we can fill in something because we know it, but you don't know it.
Michelle, I just jotted down, prioritize groundwater protection in land use decisions.
Yeah, I think so. Or like if we want to go even bigger and, like consider, I don't know, I'm kind of tired.
Yeah.
Okay.
My ideas are not coming right now, but.
Rewrite it.
if
And
other
we've
people
got
have
it,
ideas-
yes, I know.
They- Yeah.
Can we go a little bit longer than 8 o'clock, because it's 5:02? Is that okay?
Sure.
I'm trying.
I'm just gonna fall asleep over here.
I'm trying to.
No, you won't.
Charlie, there's some chocolate in a bag
You
over
know
there.
what?
I'll keep you awake.
But you know what, we have green infrastructure, then we have infrastructure, which we don't have any infrastructure, so that should go quickly. And then we don't have to do the land use, the last one, because we're gonna get heavy into that with the consultant at the next meeting.
Right.
so.
All right.
So we do green?
So it's quick, yeah, green infrastructure.
It's hard to be green.
So green infrastructure, again, this is another one where we have a separate plan, standalone plan for green infrastructure. So the purpose of the chapter in this document is just a cross-reference to that, and then it'll speak to the broader policies and how they relate to development, the future development in the county. So, number one, conservation, yes, should be conserved. Sensitive natural areas and open spaces. So, I don't think anybody's opposed to that, right?
Nope.
No. Conservation, sensitive natural areas and open
We're looking
space.
for a
Conservation
prohibition.
of central sensitive natural area.
And this
They
is,
didn't edit their,
Oh, we've been working on that.
this is the green infrastructure map, so this is what we're talking about.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So the green infrastructure, the idea behind green infrastructure is that you build these, you take all these sensitive areas, environmentally sensitive areas throughout the county, and you coordinate them into, or develop them into these corridors. One of the big reasons to do that is for wildlife. So, one of the big things that, we're trying to do is preserve the natural areas. And the next one is improve stewardship of natural areas, because that's recognizing that the majority of these environmentally sensitive areas aren't public lands. They're owned by private individuals. So I think that that's something very important that we need to work on as a county, is educating people that own these lands and
Do we need to specify that, of stewardship of privately owned natural areas? Or
Sure.
something like that? Just to make it more clear?
Yeah.
And where I used to live, I backed up to 38 acres of designated, wait, what we were just talking about, sensitive areas.
Mhm.
But it wasn't ours, it actually was under the ownership of Curling Ponds, it's a different subdivision. So they had the upkeep of it and everybody had use of it, but you have to figure that out. That, I mean, that ends up being private, not public, truly. If they didn't want our subdivision hanging around in their stuff, they didn't have to.
And another thing that we should be explored under that is, we talked about the backup SSA for stormwater management. A lot of these areas probably, when we have a subdivision, if there's sensitive areas like this, probably the SSA should be expanded to include these areas. So that's the kind of stuff that we would get to with that, along with the education program. Then the next one they have is update and disseminate the green infrastructure data layers. So what they mean is this map, the consultant who wrote this section, who was a different consultant that wrote all the other sections, was very instrumental in developing this map, and he believes strongly that it might need some updating. So what he is saying that should be one of our goals, is to update that green infrastructure. I would say the whole green infrastructure plan probably is old enough that.
It's been, what, 10 years now?
To be, yeah. Yeah, so I would probably broaden that out to maybe update the green infrastructure plan as a whole. And then disseminate, what he means, I think what he's getting, oh, no, he gets into that later.
When you say you do this,
Okay. And then the next one, adopt conservation development principles and ordinance. So we've already done that
Yeah.
with our subdivision, but let me just tell you this story quickly to get you thinking about this kind of stuff. We have the conservation design subdivision ordinance. So in our SARA areas, you've heard us talk about those, the sensitive aquifer recharge areas. If you propose a subdivision in those areas, in an area that's a sensitive aquifer recharge, you have to follow our conservation ordinance. So no one, that ordinance was adopted in 2014 with the UDO, and no one has used it yet. It hasn't really been tested. So we had someone come in, is it the Seaman Farm? The Seaman's family? Ken Rawson came in last year and got it rezoned. It's on Terracotta, right? So it's in the eastern part for a subdivision. He was gonna do a subdivision, so he rezoned to R1. And so he came in with this plan that's just the basic subdivision plan. Some cul-de-sacs, no open space, just half-acre lots, yeah, right? So he came in, he got his rezoning. Then when he came in to start subdivision, I said, well, sorry, you have to do conservation design. You can't just do this standard subdivision. So he looked at it and came back to us and said, I can't build a subdivision with these standards. So he is, last I heard, I don't know if it's official yet, he has annexed to a municipality that is gonna approve, it's not Crystal
It
Lake.
wasn't Crystal Lake? Oh, no,
They're gonna allow to do.
They're gonna allow him to do that standard. So sometimes, and my point is, sometimes our best intentions can backfire on us
Because the county pushed them.
because we pushed them to say, you have to, because those conservation standards, which is something that maybe should be a recommendation under here, is that we take another look at those, because I think we were requiring him to set aside 60% open space, I believe it was. And when you're building on well and septic, that's pretty difficult
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah, but if they're going, if he found a way to annex to a municipality, isn't that what we're encouraging otherwise?
Well,
I
that's,
agree with you.
that's also, I think we should take that a little further in that I think it's also our role to help municipalities understand,
Stand-
especially the
yes.
smaller municipalities that don't have a lot of staff or resources, that there's better ways to build a subdivision today than
Yeah.
what
Right.
this person was proposing.
Will help them too.
So review conservation
So
development principles
Yeah,
and
I think
ordinance.
so.
Review and update,
Mhm.
perhaps. Because eventually, everything that we do and we talk about now is going to come down to our final recommendations when we get through with all of this. I mean, this has been the easy stuff so far. It's a lot of good ideas and where can we go, but we have to still figure out where, what's going to give us the biggest bang for the buck that we want to have watched over and done. And so there may be some things that we think are a good idea that we kind of have to just breathe, and otherwise things that we want to really push and see. And a lot of that's going to be under the word instruct. We'll instruct, or we can educate.
Educate,
We
yes.
can talk to people about, we know this about that plan. If you mess around with it, we're going to have some issues, so wouldn't you want to do something like this?
Which is a good segue to the next one, because they said development of local green infrastructure plans. Well, we can't develop plans for municipalities, but
No.
we can certainly educate them
Yes,
and encourage the development
Yes.
of local green infrastructure plans.
right,
And the case that I just gave you is the case in point. I mean, the aquifer didn't stop on the municipal boundary at all, but I'm sure that the staff there has no idea, then they probably don't understand what the county's trying to accomplish in building these corridors
right.
of sensitive areas. So, so instead of develop, this one I believe should be maybe educate or encourage the development
Encourage,
of.
yeah.
All right.
So I'm just gonna say one thing, and then you guys, I'm not gonna say anything more about this part.
And
So-
maybe one of those update words as well. I was just looking at Woodstock really quick. I think it's a 2010 vintage. So updating would be appropriate even for those that already have them.
Yeah. Okay. So when this first came over as approving this plan in the first place, I did take issue with just having this green infrastructure, because to me, green infrastructure is just really using natural areas in lieu of like gray infrastructure, brown infrastructure, right? So you're utilizing the green spaces for the flowing of water or whatever, and trying to do it through natural landscaping and recharging, whatever. And for me, I would want to have a lot more emphasis on the conservation of our natural areas, which is a big driver of why people either come live here or come visit here. And not just our agritourism, but our conservation sites and our open space. So we talk about conservation of sensitive natural areas and open space. It isn't just the sensitive areas, it's having open space, because if you talk about just the benefit to public health, just having access to that, right? And sometimes what Cook County had to start doing was, because they had overdeveloped, they had to start creating open space in areas that weren't necessarily based on the quality of the land. It was to provide that in a more equitable way to people who lost out on it because of poor development choices early on. So, you know, and so, I don't know, to me, we're kind of mixing them, because then the last goal is expand greenway and trail connections. That, to me, goes back up at the top. You know, it goes back, it's just how you organize it, I guess.
Well, maybe this chapter should be green infrastructure and open space preservation.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
See,
I think in here somewhere we ought to mention preservation of remnant natural woodlands. Because we've destroyed, what, 98% of them, something like that. But we still do have some oaks and some old growth oaks and the hickory.
Excuse me, but do we have a program of purchasing the kind of oak trees? What kind of oak trees are we talking about? And do we have a program where people can purchase good-sized ones and then plant them themselves?
Soil and Water as their
They
plan.
have their annual tree sale.
They have an annual tree
Those are
sale.
little sticks though. I mean like the kind that cost about
Well, you can go to a
$250.
nursery.
Oh, how much?
Plant nurseries, you can purchase.
Well, yeah, but I was just thinking, in Naperville, we had a program years ago when we lived there. They had a great program where you could purchase practically street tree-sized trees for $250. And then the city'd come and plant the tree for you and everything. And within a few years, providing you tended it okay, I had some bur oak. I had a beautiful bur oak that just turned out beautifully. And I'm just wondering if we can restore that kind of oak situation here somehow with a,
There may be, part of the issue is going to end up being the new generations who are moving into the newer developments where trees are planted in parkways. They have no idea, even next door where I walk. I see trees that have all kinds of shoots coming up from the bottom, and as I'm walking by, I'm pulling stuff off to know you gotta be able to have a canopy, it's gonna turn into a bush, and nobody knows how to take care of the things that they have. So they have a beautiful birch tree that looks like a birch bush. And it doesn't have what we know to be because nobody's been educated in how to take care of that in new areas. They plant it, and then, here, go ahead and take care of it. And if you're working a job and you're going to wherever you go to exercise at night, and if you want to take care of the kids and everything else, you don't have time to do that or think about it, but you got a house. Yeah, it's the first house you've ever had, and this is what you do. And unless you come from some kind of background that tells you how to do it or know where to go to talk about it, you aren't going to get the quality of stuff that you think you're going to get. So if somebody says they want a tree and they want to go through the soil and water people, they know what they're going to have. If I get a locust, it's going to start out like the 1 inch like this, and in a couple of years it's going to be like that, and a couple more years it's going to be like that, and it's going to get tall and huge. And if you get a silver maple, it's something else that's going to destroy other parts of your land. You don't know what you're getting, but you're getting a $250 tree. You know, it depends on, and I'm not mocking you, I'm saying that somebody who isn't looking for the best interests of what we're talking about, they want a tree. I'll give you a tree. I'll give you a tree that's fast-growing tree. It leaves out, it's beautiful, and when you put it next to your patio, in 5 years, you can go replace your patio.
oh, these you got to, you
Yeah,
selected
right,
and you,
right.
you know, you had what you bought something, and
Right.
you did pay for them to plant it. They didn't do it for free, believe me.
Okay.
You know, that sort of thing. But I'm just bringing that up because
No.
it's a thought
Right.
that, I mean, I agree. The oak crown is just beautiful here. And matter of fact, I'm working right now on restoring some that the ridiculous people who lived at our farm before us accidentally cut them all down at the wrong time of year, so they all died. Bunch of idiots.
Okay.
But can I just to your point, because I think that's a good one, and with the Emergency Management Agency, we were putting together our natural hazard mitigation plan. So one of the things we got talking about is part of resilience and being resilient to natural disasters is having more trees. It's going to keep the, that they cool you down because they absorb, they have shade and all this other stuff. So that was actually part of the plan, was developing and encouraging those programs that do exactly what you're talking about. So that could be incorporated, I'm sure, in some way, because it gets to our idea of environmental resiliency and sustainability. And there are programs out there where you can get the education. So I think you're talking about the 50-50 tree program that a lot of cities will do, where you pay for it and they pay for half, and then that kind of gets more trees out there. The Chicago Region Tree Initiative is another one. They'll come out and actually work with communities, and they'll provide some funding. You can apply for grant applications on that to do exactly that, which also not only gets trees out there, but it will educate your public. So I think that's a good point. And we could be adding it in some way.
And remember, when you're getting your subdivisions and your developers coming in, you can have a requirement that they have to plant X number of trees. A tree every 50
Well,
feet.
that's what I was thinking with, what Charlie had suggested was preserve the woodlands and maybe encourage reforestation.
Okay.
And then the last one was expand greenway and trail connections. You like that?
Yep.
Okay, anything else that should go in what's now going to be titled green infrastructure and open space preservation? Is this a place that we want to include the animal crossings, or should that be in the transportation?
Could be in both.
I'd say both.
Okay.
Where does I think we have the, 15% goal of open spaces, where does that live? Does that live under this?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
We have a 15% goal of.
That was in the
For
2030 plan. Is it in this
Yeah.
plan too?
I thought it
It
said
is
open
not.
space.
This is a place that if you wanted to set a goal like that, this would be the chapter to do that. And you guys had talked about that.
I'm in
Yes.
favor of that.
I'm also, yeah.
That was
I
like our
think we
first
have-
meeting.
Yeah, we decided as a
Everybody
committee that
said
we wanted
yes.
that, yeah.
On that one.
So that probably should be objective number one.
Yes.
30 by 2030 is that?
Well, it's 30 by 30, yes, 30%. Really? And you're saying 15% by 2050.
It's a little different, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's 5% more than your 20, whatever, green infrastructure plan. So you're moving up.
Was it? I
So,
thought it was the
no, I
same
mean-
as the 2030 plan.
No, the 30 by 30 is you want to set aside, what came out of the climate talks, right, COP 26, 25, whatever, was that they feel that if you don't set aside 30% of both your land and your water for biodiversity, we could face potential ecological collapses because we're not supporting our collective food chain. And so the goal is to have 30% set aside by 2030. Now that, especially in a community like ours, a lot of that will be working with our we've got farm fields and working with our farmers. They'll still be, producing, but it's still open space. So you're looking at partnerships to accomplish it.
Well, the 15% goal was publicly owned open space.
Yeah.
Okay. And so right now, I think the conservation district accounts for about 6%,
Yes.
6 to 7%.
Did we include, I thought we included some of the private open spaces in there too.
And
Yeah,
TLC, you mean?
but not agricultural land,
Correct, right.
and not municipal parks.
Yeah, I thought it was like currently at 11, I can't remember who told us
Yeah.
this, and then,
It's in the existing conditions
yes.
report.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think they took into account conservation easements,
yes.
perpetual easements, and publicly owned land. Okay. All right, anything else in this chapter? Okay.
Okay, so then.
And then the last one is this the last one? Yes, because we're not gonna do land use. The last one is infrastructure. So, the purpose of the chapter is to recognize the impact and importance of the county being host to solar farms, for one thing, and then also, under this chapter should be an exploration of private sewer and water systems that are or may become available to allow for high-density development. So what that means is right now, we have a few places where we've tried to do these land application systems or these private, more collective sewer systems, and we haven't had a lot of luck with that, but the idea is that's a direction I think that we should give the consultant is tell us what technology is out there. Are we gonna be still relying on individual septic systems by the year 2050, or are there other technologies out there that would allow more higher density development in unincorporated areas?
Do we want high density
I don't-
development?
Well, once again, I think it depends where. If you go down to Coral Township, where you have, what, 3,000 or 4,000 approved lots, I'd much rather see that, if it's ever built up at much higher density. And it's,
And that's where they've tried these,
yeah.
and it hasn't been
But
successful.
new ones, I think we should discourage.
But also kind of the infill, because the case that I just gave you, I mean, if there were a way that this developer, if there was a technology where this developer could do some system beyond individual septics, then our conservation design standards might have worked for them.
Yeah.
So the first objective that they had was emphasize energy efficiency in existing buildings and new construction, which is something that we do through the building code. And then the second one that they had was create a targeted and proactive approach to renewables development.
What does that mean?
Don't know. I think that they're getting to, or at least, one thing that probably should be acknowledged here is that we have currently at least 36 CUPs on the books for solar farms in the western part of the county. And we have 6 going to county board this month. And we have how many in the hearing process? At least,
We had 2 yesterday, we had 2 today, and there's several more coming up.
yeah. So I think that maybe that is something that, or this is a place where we could acknowledge that we're gonna, the state has set this goal of this renewable energy goal, and it seems like the burden of hosting that is gonna fall to, or a big part of the burden is gonna fall to McHenry County.
Yeah, we seem to be attractive to solar developers, but not wind developers.
So I think that's what they mean is the solar development, they said renewables, but that's what they're getting at. And, we've been told that no wind, because I disagree strongly, coming from a place that doesn't have a lot of wind, that we don't have enough wind in McHenry County.
No, it's not that we don't have enough large spaces that you could put
Put
in
Right.
enough
our open
turbines.
spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just don't have large enough agricultural areas to justify it.
And the other
But
thing was,
it's-
we had worked with somebody, because we put solar panels on, but he used to do wind tower. But they kept breaking because our wind is gusty.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it really,
Yeah.
he just said in the end, it really wasn't working for him because they just weren't working that well. And that the solar was much more reliable in our area.
Yeah, you want steady and not really high degree wind, steady moderate winds, I think is what you want.
But anyway, but the space issue, I didn't think about that too. I mean, they take a lot.
And because we have more developed county, you have more homes that the flicker effect could bother people in those homes, where when you have large rural areas, the flicker effect from those wind generators is not affected as much. So again, that's
Well, and I
probably
think
why.
the solar farms attract smaller operators,
Yeah.
because the wind farms are very much more, I mean, one of those windmills costs as much as one of these solar farms.
Sure.
I almost see like a conflict here anyway, because we're talking about the solar developments. There's a lot of concern about the protection of farmland as these things are, are targeted towards farms. So how do we encourage renewable developments without jeopardizing our farmland?
Well, the way they worded it was create a targeted and proactive approach to solar development. And I take that to mean we need to decide where we want them, or where it's
We
appropriate.
need to lobby the state
Well, I
to
know,
change the law.
yeah, you guys are laughing because they know that the state took our power away to make those kinds of decisions, but I think that's what they're getting at.
Yeah, I mean, we should be encouraging putting solar on top of all those factories and buildings and distribution centers.
Lindsay?
And I could see that being a recommendation under this goal.
Yes.
It's just saying, yeah, more
Elizabeth
brownfield
was talking
development.
about that today.
Rather than using land, putting it on
Yes.
buildings.
We
If you have Walmart and all the places that have flat roofs, that they
Walmart
can-
parking lots.
Well, I was talking
Or
about
parking
something
lots.
really
In my
specific.
perfect world, every Walmart parking lot would be covered completely with solar panels.
Well, the parking lot
But
itself,
that's
they
when
actually-
you guys decide I should be in charge of everything.
well, the parking, anywhere you have parking, because they do that out in
Yeah.
Europe, I think it was in Italy, but somebody was saying that last year. But were you gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna say, that part of me thinks the best thing for farmland preservation is setting aside a farm for 30 years and making it for solar, right? Let's say there is no solar farm that goes in, I think it's just as likely that farm on Fleming gets developed into single-family homes at some point in the future. That's probably more likely than in 30 years, this, going away from farming too. So I think there's I agree with you, there's this idea that we're losing farmland, but I think this might be a good way to preserve our farmland, just by
Well, and
having
a
this.
new thing that we've
Yes,
heard
that's true.
in our zoning hearings just in the last couple of weeks is they get appointed for something called agrivoltaics, where you can do sheep grazing, you could do a
Right.
community garden
Right.
underneath, so you're still having agriculture as well as energy generated on these sites. It's new, a lot of people are just wanting that point, so they say we're gonna do it, but they have no idea how they're gonna do it. And this is for the block grant program in the state, but, there's a lot of research being done and as to what would work.
Well, plus the types are getting better, because you had that one guy come in and talk to you during your hearing, where he was saying that the panels themselves are getting more energy,
Yeah, they're double-sided even now.
right, and they're
so
getting
they
more,
can-
so you can get,
yeah.
right? And I agree with you, because in 30 years, that's gonna be great soil for whoever once it's decommissioned. Yeah, I agree.
All right, so for this one, I'm sorry.
I just have one thing. I also have this is a brand new idea.
Okay.
Conservation. Going back to some of the ways that we used to operate back in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s. Going back that way and not using so much electricity. Do we all need to have 6 computers in the house? Do we all need to have everything running 24/7? No. And regular plain old conservation hasn't been done now for years. People have been sloth-like in just constantly running the water while you're brushing your teeth, and let's just keep running it as long as boy, you didn't dare do that. years ago. You shut that water off, you brushed your teeth, then you turn the water back on. It's those little things, those conservation things like that, that add up. And nobody is ever talking about that kind of stuff. And it really does add up quickly. When you start turning things off. You leave a room, you turn the light off.
Right.
And, look at your kids now, everything's on and.
There's a commercial for that where the
No, I
dad
think
keeps
that
turning
that's-
off the lights.
I think that's a great goal under infrastructure, and I just kind of jotted down, promote energy conservation and public education of energy conservation. I remember when I was a kid, TVA would come to our school and give us these little stickers that we put on all of our light switches at home that said, shut the light off when you leave the room and stuff like that. And you're right, you don't see that much anymore.
Well, right now, 1% of our fleet in McHenry County is electric. What happens when it's 100% in 20, 30 years?
What was that?
I think the whole idea of conservation is great, but let's be honest, the reason we're encouraging electricity generation is because of the EV infrastructure that is coming, whether you agree with EVs or not. That is the future of our transportation system, not in 30 years, but in 10 or 20 years, it's going to be here. We will all be driving electric cars before too long.
Electric cars that are generated by gasoline, coal, natural gas at all of our, or nuclear power plants. That's the kind of electricity, that's how our electric cars will be.
Well, I
So
don't
that's an
know
interest, I think that's always of interest, yeah. We got our electric cars that are being generated by nuclear power.
To get to Scott makes a great point too, and I don't know if it's covered in the transportation section, but one thing in the article that you shared about Norway is that in infrastructure, something that we do need to look at is preparing for the EV charging stations and that sort of thing. So I would suggest we add that in this chapter.
Yeah,
So you mean
Yeah,
those
none of it's gonna
solar
work.
panels
It's the
are
silliest
the
idea.
power generation that's going to
On
be needed
Earth.
for that is just massive.
Yeah, and the article that Scott shared is that it was something like 97% of new cars sold in Norway currently are EVs, but their infrastructure hasn't kept pace, so they have people that, you have trouble finding an EV station close to you, or they may be, the
Dead
demand
cars
is too
on the side
high
of the
for
road.
them. Yeah, instead of the old 1970s gas lines, people are lined up at the EV stations. So yeah, I think that's a very important one.
And Norway's a lot smaller country, and this is 3,000 miles across our country, and we're gonna be dinking around with plugging in our cars every couple minutes. Oh yeah, that's gonna happen.
So you're right, though. Norway's about the size of the Chicago metro area, right? So population-wise, it's about 6 million people. And it is maybe a bad comparison, but I think they're there today. We're going to be 20 years behind them, but it is coming. And I think we just need, that's maybe something that we've overlooked quite a bit throughout this planning process, is just how rapidly and how different our transportation system is going to look and feel and sound in 10, 20 years from now.
Well, and to that point, were you at the conservation, they did the Conservation Congress a couple of years ago, and it was talking, the guy came in and talked
The
about
futurist,
the future.
yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, things that aren't even driving on the ground, like flying cars. And I know that sounds crazy, but he says that they already have some of those in Europe.
And driverless vehicles as well.
Right.
That is, it's been talked about for a while, but it is in the future.
The hottest thing in aviation planning right now are eVTOLs, electric vertical takeoff and landing air taxis that have 150 mile radius. They're pretty much fly-by-wire. They hold 4 to 6 people, and they can get you from here to Chicago in about 8 minutes.
Yeah, no, thank you. Right, but
You're gonna
Yeah,
see some
those
changes
sound
very,
great.
we're gonna see changes very fast, and we're gonna have the delivery of packages that are gonna be done by drones. And, you know, we're gonna build a road system that might be a lot larger than we actually need in the future. So, I mean, it is, I mean, that's a good point, we didn't talk, yeah, I was thinking earlier.
What about the idea, since this is infrastructure, is airports? Is that, because you talked about how potentially that one might become part of a countywide airport authority, or?
That's true, although it's probably going to be incorporated in the city code.
We don't have any pilots, don't forget that.
We don't?
We're missing, yes, we're missing 150 pilots so far that I know of anyway. At American, I believe it is. Well, you know, after the COVID thing, you had people quit and then they retired or just left. And that was the end of that. And so you've got, who knows how many are gone now. And that's gonna make a big difference. My younger daughter is military and they don't have half enough pilots. It's
So they're not doing very well on just getting people to, they're 20% down on their recruitment.
That's right.
But-
Yeah.
Not tonight. Tonight, it looks like we are at the end of this road.
Okay.
Unless you guys want to chat it up, I'm willing, but we're all starting to cave, I think. I found this to be very, very, very,
Can we ask this one last question,
Sure.
Mary, and then we can be done?
go ahead.
Any subjects or anything that we haven't covered? We have to speak now or forever hold our peace.
Well, or we can say it next time, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean.
Kind of. I mean, but it's a kind of thing, because what we're giving them as of today is what they're going to use for their modeling. If suddenly we throw something else into that mix,
It's not to say that we can't, but is there any glaring thing that we missed? Garrett, did you have something?
I don't think so.
Are you sure? Okay.
You know, the main one I've been emailing you about, I think I already mentioned last time, so I
Yes,
think it's already
and that
discussed.
should be part of the land use, the future land use planning
Yeah.
initiative. Yes, I agree with you.
I feel kind of weird speaking on this because we haven't even seen what the consultant is gonna come back to us with. And so like I can't exactly say if we're missing anything because we have provided a lot of feedback and I wanna make sure it's all there. And so I don't feel comfortable like closing the book definitively tonight.
But I guess what I'm asking are bigger pictures.
Okay.
Like, did we miss any big ideas that should be in this plan that aren't in the plan?
Right.
And I can't think of any, so.
I mean, at
I
one
don't
point
see
we had
tired
talked
to
about
this.
some transparency things, like with, you know, tax dollars, and I don't think that this is the place for like a government transparency and accountability provision, but I'm just throwing that out there in case people feel otherwise.
One thing I'm not sure exactly fits in the plan, but probably is going to affect how it's implemented, is that the demographics and ethnicity of the county is probably going to change more over the next 30 years than it has in the previous 100.
Really?
That,
Oh, yeah.
based on birth rates, the population of virtually all groups that are here are going to be stable or declining, and most of the growth in the United States and probably here as well are going to be immigrants in the country. And I think that, I don't know how that fits in exactly.
Well, remember,
But
one
it's
of
important.
one of our themes that will run throughout every chapter is the equity, diversity,
Yeah,
and
inclusion,
inclusion.
yes.
So I'm hoping that that's kind of
Yeah,
where that gets.
but I think maybe there's a place to note
Yeah.
that immigration is probably going to be more important in the next 30 years than it has been since the 30 years following the Civil War.
Yeah, so Mary, just really quick example, the population of Woodstock as a whole, 23% Hispanic. The enrollment in the school district is 35% Hispanic. So the kids are a bigger percentage
Okay,
than the rest
That's
of the
fine.
Yeah,
community.
and
fine.
Just
in
that kind
Harvard,
of, that kind of
it's,
demographic trend is going to continue.
yeah, in Harvard, it's 38% of the population and 62%
Right,
of the
exactly.
kids in the school.
Exactly, that kind of thing.
wow.
One subject area, and I don't know, maybe you have addressed it, but would be, I know it was part of previous land use plans, was protection of agriculture as an industry, because it's not just land use. And if you don't protect the industry, you're gonna lose the farmland to development. So I don't know if that's part of it, if that's something you want covered or not, but I'm just raising that issue.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely true
Yeah.
that an awful lot of the people who move to estates in the country don't have any idea how to deal around farmers or farmer equipment.
No, and especially around animal agriculture.
Yes.
That even
Well, just tractors.
tractors, yeah, tractors going down the road, and they love being out in the country until they have to sit behind a tractor going down the road who's trying to go field to field to harvest. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
We've
had-
gotten flagged with a
I
few
had
choice
two-
fingers over the years.
I had 2 calls today that kind of made me chuckle from neighbors that were upset that there was a rooster in their neighborhood, that they could hear a rooster. So it just makes me kind of chuckle because we sit here and we talk about, oh, people come here for the rural atmosphere and everything, but heaven forbid I've got to listen to a rooster, so yes.
Well, they come here for a Disney version. of,
Correct.
Yes, absolutely,
look out
I
for
would agree with that, Charlie.
And to your point, Linnea, in our agriculture chapter, I think we did try to like hit on how do we, ensure that farmers specifically and the people who are in the agriculture industry are being served by our county and not just, preserving the land and not worrying about how we do it.
Good, okay.
And we had a goal of encouraging more agritourism and specialty crop production
And that's all
and
good.
other
But
ag.
you have some people that have invested millions of dollars in, big grain setups, big animal agriculture that need protection from development around them in order for them to stay viable for the next generation. And a lot of these people are, third and fourth generation in this county, and they want to be able to continue. And land use has a huge impact on their ability to do so.
So, I want to thank everybody, because the next time we meet, it's going to be a whole new world. Because we're going to see
Play with
things,
maps.
we're going to see things that we haven't seen. We're going to be talking in depth about stuff that we have now started here, and we're going to do better, and I'm looking forward to it all. I want to truly, the discourse here it is diverse, except not tonight. Michelle's in. She's the this one. But we've had
Like diverse.
we've had older people, younger people, from this end, from that end, and it's been a joy. We got another 6 months to go, and we may be finished, but as long as we can do this the way we're doing it, start on time, try to end before 9 o'clock. Sorry, it's 8:40, I didn't mean to do that to you, Michelle. But we're all done.
I don't turn into a pumpkin.
So the next meeting is June 29th, and you will get an email from me tonight with the link to your agenda. I didn't want to send it for this meeting because I didn't want to confuse you. So you will get it sometime tonight when I send it. And like Mary said, it will be with Halcyon Levine, and it'll be a very interesting meeting, I think, because one of the deliverables that we asked them for was to put together a map of the county where they take all of the municipal extraterritorial jurisdictions, the planning that they have on the books for that, put it all together on one map for us. So they have produced that. So that's what we'll start looking at next time. And it's enlightening.
It's get your goggles, eat your candy, drink some Mountain Dew. We need
Would a
some
motion to
energy.
adjourn be in order?
I'm sorry?
Would a motion to adjourn be in order?
I don't think I have a motion to adjourn.
No.
I'm calling this meeting finished for tonight. Thank you. I'm the chairman, I can do that.
You can do that. I like to, don't say anything inappropriate, because I figure out how to turn this off.
Michelle, I got your email this morning.
Oh, yeah, did you?
What's Michelle emailed me about? Oh, wait, it's.
We sent out an email with your name to, I don't know how many people, and I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
It's just her day job. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, very, very exciting.
No.